I thought I was doing something smart by renting out the apartment I inherited. It was just sitting there, collecting dust and taxes. The guy who moved in seemed totally normal, polite, quiet, paid on time. But something about him was off. He kept calling me in the middle of the night, asking weird questions about the place. Then one day, he just disappeared. And that was only the beginning. When my aunt passed away, she left me her old apartment in a quiet part of town. It wasn't in the best shape, but it was fully paid off, and the location wasn't bad. I didn't have any emotional connection to the place, and honestly, I didn't even remember ever being inside it as a kid, though my mom insisted I had been. I figured I could either sell it or rent it out, and since the market was kinda shaky, I chose the latter. I listed it on a couple rental sites, cleaned it up a little, and within a week, I had a bite. The guy's name was Daniel. Mid-30s, single, remote tech worker. He seemed like one of those people who fade into the background. Super polite. Barely talked. Kept his hands folded when we spoke. He asked almost no questions about the apartment, except one, which I found a little odd at the time. He asked me if anyone had lived there recently. I told him no, just my aunt, and she'd passed away a few months earlier. He nodded and didn't say anything else. After he moved in, things were chill for a while. He paid rent early, didn't make any noise complaints, didn't have parties, nothing. Perfect tenant. Except about 2 weeks in, he called me at like 2:30 in the morning. I remember it so clearly because I almost didn't answer. When I picked up, he sounded unsettled. He said something like, "Hey, sorry, I know it's late, but did you ever stay in this apartment? Like as a kid?" That caught me off guard. I told him no, or at least, not that I could remember. My mom had said I used to stay with my aunt sometimes, but I had no memory of it. I figured maybe the guy was just spooked by creaky floors or drafty windows. Old buildings do that. I brushed it off. A few days later, he texted me saying he was hearing noises at night, whispers, mostly, and light footsteps. He thought maybe there was an issue with the plumbing or a neighbor making noise through the vents. Again, I told him it was an old building and that things like that were normal. He said okay, but I could tell he wasn't buying it. Then, nothing. Total silence for about a week. Until I got a call from the building super. He said he hadn't seen Daniel in days and that his mail was piling up. I went over to check. When I opened the door, everything was still there. His laptop, clothes, even a cup of coffee on the kitchen counter that had grown a thick layer of mold on top. But no Daniel. It didn't look like he packed. It didn't look like he left. It looked like he just stopped existing right in the middle of living. I called the police, obviously. Reported him missing. Gave them what little info I had. They did their thing, but honestly, it didn't seem like they took it too seriously. Adults disappear all the time, they said. He probably just left. But here's the thing. I looked at the walls before I left the apartment. Just kind of scanning around, not even sure what I was looking for. And in the hallway, near the bathroom, I saw these faint scratch marks on the paint. Vertical lines. Like tiny hands had dragged down the wall. I ran my fingers over them. They felt old. But somehow recent too. I couldn't explain it. That night, I dreamed of that hallway. Except this time, there was a little boy standing in it, staring at me. His face looked familiar, but I couldn't place it. I woke up in a cold sweat, and for the first time, I wondered if Daniel had actually sensed something real. And if so, what the hell had I just inherited? I didn't go back for a while. Part of it was laziness. I had work, bills, my own life to deal with, but honestly, I just didn't want to walk back into that place. I kept making excuses. I told myself I was waiting for the police to follow up. That maybe Daniel would reappear and explain everything. But weeks passed. Then a month. Eventually, I knew I had to go back in. I had to clean it out, get it ready to relist. There was no legal reason not to. And I figured if anything felt weird, I could just call someone. A buddy, a cleaner, whatever. I wasn't planning to do much, just pack up his things and maybe repaint a wall or two. The second I opened the door, that heavy air hit me again. It wasn't just stale. It smelled strange. Like something faintly metallic, mixed with mold. Not overwhelming, but enough to make me stop in the doorway. And everything was exactly the way I'd left it. Lights off. No sounds. Just the stillness of an apartment nobody had touched in weeks. I started in the kitchen. Dishes were still drying in the rack. Fridge humming like normal. But when I opened it, I gagged. The food was rotting. Not like it had just gone bad, like it had melted. The milk was black. The leftovers were a kind of green paste. I slammed the fridge shut and stepped back. That's when I noticed something odd. The bathroom door was open. I was certain I'd closed it when I left. It wasn't swinging, not cracked, it was fully open. The light was off, but a bit of natural light was leaking in from the frosted window. I stood there for a while, just staring. It felt like if I looked long enough, I'd see someone move in the dark. But nothing did. I made myself walk in. Sleeve, not thinking, just doing, and for a second I swear I saw words. Not clearly, but like they'd been written in steam, and were now barely hanging on. Just a few letters, maybe a D? Or a go. Then they were gone. I backed out of the bathroom, heart thumping harder than it should have. My hands felt clammy. I told myself I was just being jumpy. That the brain sees patterns. That Daniel probably wrote something on the mirror one day, and the oils or moisture made it reappear. I knew how this stuff worked. I wasn't some paranoid kid. Still, I left. I didn't even pack anything. I locked the door and drove straight home. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking the locks. I'd never been that kind of person before. I live in a decent neighborhood, nothing ever happens here, but I must have gotten up 5 times just to check the front door. At 3:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text. No number. Just unknown. The message said, "You left the door open." I stared at it for a long time. My brain tried to come up with every explanation. Scam? Wrong number? Glitch? But I knew what it meant. And I knew it wasn't wrong. I didn't respond to the message. I just sat there, phone in hand, watching the screen fade to black. Eventually, I turned it off. Not just the screen, I powered the whole thing down. Something about that message felt close. Like whoever sent it knew I'd be reading it at that exact second. The next morning, I tried to rationalize it. I told myself it was a prank. Maybe someone got my number, maybe Daniel gave it to a friend. But no one else should have known about that apartment. Not the layout. Not the door. Not the way I'd left it cracked open. Still, I had to go back. I had to deal with it, the place was technically mine. So I returned that afternoon. This time, I brought gloves. A mask. Trash bags. Just get in, clean it out, get it over with. Nothing weird happened for the first hour. I packed up kitchen stuff, stacked up books, unplugged the TV. Then I found a box under the coffee table. Plain cardboard. Unlabeled. Inside were old VHS tapes. 10 of them. No writing, no markings. Just blank black plastic. I almost left them there. I don't even own a VCR. But something about the way they were packed, neatly, carefully, made me stop. They felt deliberate. Like something Daniel had hidden for a reason. Later that night, I drove to my brother's place. He still had an old player in his basement. I told him I was clearing out storage and found some of Dad's old recordings. That was a lie, but it kept him from asking questions. I waited until he and his wife were asleep. Went downstairs. Popped the first tape in. At first, it was just static. Then darkness. The kind of darkness that isn't black, but gray. Like a room caught by a night vision camera. Then, a shape. It was Daniel. Sitting on the floor. Same clothes I saw him wear during the last month he lived there. Eyes wide open. Not blinking. Just staring. He didn't say anything. Didn't move. The tape ran for 6 full minutes before he finally whispered something. It was almost too quiet to hear. I had to replay it 5 times. But finally, I caught it. He said, "He doesn't sleep. He just watches." Then the screen went black. I turned the TV off. I sat there in the dark for almost an hour, listening to the faint hum of the VCR cooling down. And even though I was alone in that basement, I felt like I wasn't. I didn't go back to the apartment for 3 days. I couldn't. Even in my own place, I was on edge. Kept checking the peephole. Listening for footsteps. I hadn't watched the other tapes, just that one. It was enough to leave me shaken. Sleep became fragmented. I'd drift off, then jerk awake feeling like someone was in the room. Then I started noticing things. Little things. Like my closet door being open a crack in the morning, when I know I shut it at night. Or the sound of something shifting under the bed when I turned off the lights. At first, I told myself it was just anxiety. Carryover from the apartment. But it got worse. One night, I woke up facing the wall. My bedroom door creaked open behind me. Not all the way. Just an inch. Just enough. I froze. I wanted to turn, to look, but I couldn't. My body was stuck. Not like sleep paralysis, I could feel my hands. I could move, But I didn't. Because something told me not to. I laid there, listening. And then, I heard it. Breathing. Not loud. Not ragged. Just slow, even, steady. Like someone standing right at the door, staring at the back of my head. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Could have been seconds. Could have been an hour. But eventually, it stopped. The door clicked shut. And the next morning? I found something on my kitchen counter. A note. One line. Written in blocky, uneven handwriting. Do you see him yet? No envelope. No sign of a break-in. Just the note. At that point, I had to know. I had to go back. I needed to see the rest of those tapes. Something told me the answers were in there. I don't know why. I don't even know what I expected. But I was starting to feel what Daniel must have felt. Like something had followed him home. And maybe now it was following me. I went back on a Thursday. It was raining. The whole building looked darker somehow, even from the outside. The super wasn't there. I didn't care. I just wanted to get in, grab the rest of the tapes, and leave. But once I stepped inside that apartment, I knew I wouldn't be leaving right away. The smell had changed. It no longer smelled stale or abandoned. It smelled, lived in. Like someone had been there recently. Coffee. Faint soap. Damp towels. There were no towels in the bathroom. Still, I tried to ignore it. I pulled out the box of tapes. I hadn't even touched most of them. They weren't labeled in order, just random dates and numbers. I grabbed 4, wiped the dust off, and sat down. No lights. Just the glow from the TV. The first tape? Just Daniel, sitting on the edge of the couch, staring at the camera. He wasn't speaking. He barely blinked. And then, out of nowhere, he whispered, "I think he knows I see him." Second tape, he's pacing, mumbling to himself. He keeps turning toward the hall. At one point, he snaps his head toward the door and says, "He's getting closer at night." Third one? He's asleep. Or, trying to sleep. But behind him, near the corner of the frame, there's a shadow. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light. But it moved. Slowly. Barely. Like it didn't want to be seen. I paused the tape. Leaned closer. And that's when I noticed something. Each shadow, each frame, it was always in the same position. Same room. Same angle. Like it was creeping toward the camera, inch by inch. By the fourth tape, it was closer. And Daniel? He was different. His eyes were sunken. His skin looked pale. He wasn't even talking anymore. Just shaking. Sitting on the floor, knees pulled to his chest. And then, mid-frame, he lifts his head, looks dead into the camera, and mouths the words. "It doesn't leave when you move out." I stopped the tape. My hands were shaking. Whatever he saw, whatever followed him, it was never about the apartment. It was about attention. He noticed it. He saw the pattern. He acknowledged it. And once you do that, you invite it in. I didn't go back for the rest of the tapes. I couldn't. But the weird part is, I didn't need to. Because I started hearing things in my own place. At first, I thought it was just in my head. You watch enough of those tapes, your brain starts to connect dots that aren't there. Right? But then the hallway light in my apartment started flickering. Only that one. Always around 3 a.m. My phone, it recorded something one night. I didn't remember hitting record. It was just audio. 47 minutes of static, and breathing. Not mine. Too slow. Too deep. Once, I came home and found the kitchen light on. I never leave that light on. The chair by my bed was turned, slightly. Not a lot. Just enough for me to notice. Then one night, I had a dream. At least, I think it was a dream. I was lying in bed, and I couldn't move. I could feel someone standing in the corner. Not moving. Not breathing. Just, watching. When I finally forced myself to sit up, the corner was empty. Of course it was. But here's what really got me. I checked the footage from my hallway camera the next morning. Motion triggered. At 3:07 a.m., the camera flicked on. The hallway was empty. But, for 3 frames, exactly 3, there was something. A shape. Standing just outside my door. Too tall. Too thin. No face. Gone by the time the 4th frame rolled. I haven't watched the rest of Daniel's tapes. I boxed them up. Sealed them. But I haven't thrown them out. Because deep down, I know the truth now. He wasn't crazy. He was documenting it. Recording the moment it noticed him. And now? Now I sleep with the lights on. But not because I'm scared. I just wanted to know. I see it too.